Welcome to Inconvenient Disparities, the podcast that brings uncomfortable truths about health and well-being gaps to light. We're diving into the stories, data, and voices that are too often ignored because closing the gap starts with facing it. And now, here's your host, Stephanie Monroe.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's program, Inconvenient Truths. So today I am so delighted to bring to you and for me to have a conversation with my oldest and dearest friend, Dr. Wanda Walker. Wanda and I grew up together right literally around the corner in Baltimore, Maryland. I felt like we were each other's babysitters because I don't remember either of us having a babysitter. Usually she just would show up and then the parents would go out for a few minutes because she was just a little bit older than I. But she and my brother and I would often just get together, and our parents knew that that was a safe place for us, probably safer than bringing in strangers off the street to mind us. And because we were such good children, they were able to do that. So without further ado, I do want to introduce you to Dr. Wanda Walker. Wanda has led a very distinguished career, first working for the government, being a law school graduate, now working with people across the world on bringing hope and wellness. And this hasn't been without struggle and sacrifice. We all learn, we all go through different paths. And as Robin Roberts from Good Morning America says, we're making our mess our message. And so with that, let me turn this over to Wanda. Wanda, welcome. So great to see you. And please tell us what you've been up to since you were able to slither out of Baltimore.
Okay, out of Baltimore, diverse background, first of all, from engineering to law school, doing a master in divinity and my doctorate in strategic leadership. So you can see how my brain is being used, all four corners of it. 35 years with the federal government as a senior executive. And I didn't find until later that everything I have done, everything that I do is always edifying and encouraging and pouring back into people. I didn't see the nexus from the engineering to the law, to my master's in divinity, even until my doctorate, that I'm constantly wanting, and that is, I feel my purpose in life is to pour back into people. Mm-hmm. And you might think that for engineering and law, how's that happen? Well, you know, in being in a leadership role in a field that's STEM, it's kind of like, we don't want to touch people. That's kind of why we go into those type of fields. Well, if you do it right, you're going to pour into people no matter where you go, especially when that's your gift. The master's in divinity and my doctorate makes it a little bit more a nexus where you can see how it can happen. Currently, as Stephanie mentioned, I actually do have a coaching firm, and it is Dr. Wanda Walker, LLC, named after myself because I feel that I am key to this journey.
Absolutely.
And I recognize even in that, working with individuals as they are in relationships, working with individuals as they're in the workforce, and working with individuals as they're doing in leadership. It's always going to be, for me, working with individuals. I am of the mindset that a healthy one person, can then turn around and pour into others. And that's always going to be my message. And it's always going to be the question of, then how do we become the healthy one?
Yes.
And that's I'm trying to get to that place. We've actually been in conversation as far as I went into a marriage in 21 years, which was not healthy. Coming out of that, it's like rebuilding. One of the first questions I had to ask myself is, how'd you get into that? Mm-hmm. Two whole people going into a marriage makes a healthy marriage. Two not so healthy people, we could actually even say broken, going into a marriage. Well, then we have the expectation that the person who is broken, you want the other person to fix you.
Yes.
And if you have two people who are broken, then you're both looking for the same thing, the person who's going to fix. And very seldom can a broken person fix a broken person. Mm-hmm. And we to say never does that happen. Coming out of my marriage, ending in divorce, also was domestic violence, in as being part of that. I had to find and redefine myself. And the first thing I had to find out is what was broken within me in order to actually get myself to a place of good foundation to put my feet on and then work from there. So that's an ugly picture that a lot of us really don't want to look into as far as what's wrong with me. Why did I pick someone who was not going to be the best for me, the best to me? That wasn't, you know, as my daughter says, and I hate to quote her, but she says, you have a tendency of actually looking back, and she's looking at people in relationships. We actually pick what we think that we are worthy of.
Mm.
And that hit me. And this was after the marriage was over, but it really hit me. And I was like, she's kind of right with that one. So I didn't feel that I was worthy of anything better. And then I have to answer the question, why didn't I? We come from family who,
Yeah.
you know, but along the way, and if you're working with a narcissist, they can actually convince you that you are not worthy, that you are not in a place of wholeness or capable of, loving or being loved by anyone else. So what she said actually left a mark.
You know what?
Definitely.
I'm going to defend my friend and myself because I've been in the same situation, and I'm sure many, many, many women have. And I think while there might be something to it in why we don't think we can say, no, you're not giving me what I want to
Mhm.
people. We get to a certain age, and sometimes we think what we want is less than what we really want. I think one of the bigger issues, I know for me, and I want to hear your reaction to it, is that those of us who love people, and clearly you do, want to fix people, not in a bad way. We feel with the right kind of love, and I know I did this, with the right kind of love and the circumstances and strong family values, that person will rise to the expectation. And I am saying this in sort of like a sarcastic way, but it really is true. I found myself being attracted to people who need help because I want to help
Mhm.
and fix. I'm not the person you come to if you want someone to cry on your shoulder. That's not me. But if you tell me what the problem is, and I'm a lawyer too, I'm going to solve your problem and give you 3 steps on how to do it. I'm wondering if that is some of it. Like, I don't want to go to pain with you. I'll be there, but
Mhm.
steps we're going to take to
Mhm.
get you out of this situation.
And I think because we come from loving families and we've had families pour into us, it
Mhm.
becomes almost natural for us to then turn around and want to pour into others. But being a giver into a person who is a taker is
Mm,
never going to have an end to it. It never will.
absolutely.
And we have to understand boundaries in that. And I
Mhm.
think in my instance, it's like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and being a woman of faith as far as you can pray. But the
Yeah.
person has to have a heart that wants to be changed.
Yes.
And the end was when this is really working for them and it's working to their benefit, what's the reason for them to change?
And that's the point that my counselor said after I had spent 10 years in marriage counseling by myself. It's like the guy needs to be here to sort of hear the
Mhm.
message and do that. Well, let's jump back to Baltimore for a second because I was there, you were there, and this is not a cocky narcissistic thing to say, but we were smart and we were different than the
Mhm.
typical person in our neighborhoods, right? They just didn't have, as you said, the benefit not just of some loving parents, two-parent households, but aggressively persistent, even pushy parents. I didn't know it was wrong on a Saturday morning to clean your walls down with Clorox and then for your reward, go to the library and get your 5 books for the week. We didn't get to go out and play until, we had things we had to do and books and
Mhm.
assignments as if we were in school. We just thought everyone did that. And I
Mhm.
left Baltimore, and then you left Baltimore. We went out and still lived within a few miles of each other. I don't know if you experienced this. Tell me what your experience was of being a smart kid with ambition in a place, in a surrounding where that wasn't necessarily supported by your peers, as you would hope, and then you go out into a very white, just call it what it is, suburban environment that's very different.
Well, we were in leaving out of Ringwood, and you're very correct as far as our families being a foothold that valued education. I mean, truly valued education. Coming out of that place of, I'll say, comfort, because it was in our family unit, be it at my house or yours, to a very cold society, where I felt that it was actually you were either a novelty, as they had you pegged on a pedestal of being the exception. And I'm like, there weren't always exceptions. I mean, we had more, we just hadn't congregated. I went into fields which are not, predominantly chosen by, especially in that era, by Blacks, as far as engineering and law, that, and definitely by females on top of that.
Yeah.
That always helped. But yeah, it's kind of a cold place, and that you are felt to be a novelty. You're the exception that made it out. And I'm like, there are other exceptions out there. We just aren't, in a congregate, where we're actually bumping into one another, unless it's in a Black society of something. Then we have being able to bump into more educated Blacks. The word cold just keeps coming to mind because it was, you almost had to be on your best behavior because you are representing an entire race. And that's not a pleasant place to be.
Right.
No. And definitely when I went up to, as far as being a senior executive with the federal government, that was an anomaly to have. It was at a STEM organization, and I want to mention the name of it, but it's a STEM organization. So again, you have the mix of the science, the law, and then as far as a senior executive, there weren't a lot of Blacks and weren't a lot of females also. So again, a novelty. So you want to make sure that you're representing well, even if it's not forefront in your mind, it's still in there somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And you will be reminded. One of my positions that I took, the person told me, "What if you only were chosen because you're Black?" I'm like, one, that took a lot of nerve to say, because I've been appointed as a senior executive now. And I told the person, I was like, it won't be the first time, but when I get into the position, I'll show you that I'm fully qualified.
Very good answer. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It may get you there.
Probably overqualified to get.
And that's where
it's very challenging. I think sometimes people want to believe that equal opportunity, and I say equal opportunity, not a quota, not a gift, but an opportunity to have your gifts and your talents shown, hopefully to an unbiased person, which we know doesn't always exist. And it's a challenge, right? You have to play a game that I'm sure both of us don't play well. I don't play well with certain games and don't always speak as politically correct as some would like, because you know what? This podcast is about inconvenient truth, and sometimes truths have to be told. And people don't often appreciate the truth, even if it's said in a certain way. And so there are challenges all the way. Do your best, get promoted while you're also trying to lay low, not cause trouble, right? We have to walk so many different ropes to be seen and to be validated. And what I have started thinking about is, in so many different positions, I think that women researchers, attorneys, and others are stymied by what I'm going to call the white ceiling. Again, I don't think that people are necessarily intentionally racist, not necessarily, but they certainly don't appreciate competition from any color, and especially from women. They don't expect that, right? Because it's a male-dominated SES system. Our fields are very much male-dominated. I've had researchers tell me that they've got their PhDs and their MSs and everything else after their names, and they have to plead to have someone publish a paper that is clearly excellent product, because the white ceiling won't let them get through that place, or because you can't get into, a higher level of learning or opportunity, because your paper isn't published in a peer-reviewed journal that has the word Princeton or Yale in there. They don't recognize schools of learning that are accredited, that are higher levels of education, HBCUs and other, colleges and education. There's biases everywhere. Remember that movie that said, "I see ghosts everywhere"? I see bias everywhere. People have a preference of what they want and what jar they want to put you in. And so you got to fight that by walking along.
It's got to be the comfort, and I understand that it's easier to, associate with and, for those that look just like you. But I'm like, community is probably undermined as far as being a strength, and a diverse community makes it even stronger. And, being able to have people understand that concept, that if you have someone that's like you, is going to say yes when you say yes, no when you say no, you now have really undermined whatever product you're going to put out.
Right.
For my dissertation, which was on the subject matter of the marginalized and communication, I was having difficulty having, my first and second reader sign off because they did not agree with my premise. Well, that's not their job.
Right.
The job was, and me having doing 7 years of research, and I'm showing you how I'm laying this out and my logic. It's not whether you agree with, the finding or not. Your, as a first or second reader, is to make the determination that my form is correct, the substance and how I've laid it out, is correct, and the final that came out as far as the, is, probable.
Right.
Especially, but that was not something they wanted to sign off on, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I do?
And then you get labeled as you're being uppity, you're being the B word, you're non-cooperative, you're not a team player, instead of what I am is I'm a person who seeks excellence and who's able to do my job, and you need to get out of the way.
And that's pretty much where it was. And that's why it took 7 years to do what I really should have been able to do in 4.
Right.
But I'm not going to change it. You're going to have to tell me, where am I lacking the logic, the rationale, or whatever. And if I'm not, then I need your signature on this. But I do have to say, at my defense, my final defense panel, that one of the individuals said that I had actually held it myself with grace during the period. And I'm like, okay, that I felt, we could have an intelligent discussion, recognizing out of this room, I am the most researched on this topic. That's what my dissertation is actually there for. It's novel in that. Can you honor that? Was my question back to them. Can you honor that?
Yes. So what would you say to a person entering your path? Someone who's trying to work in a STEM field, who is facing those challenges that will eventually make them stronger, but may make the walk there much more difficult. What would you advise them to do, especially with the grace piece?
I would say I'd have to go backwards. And instead of asking the question as far as about the field, I'd say any field, that you enter into, not as a vocation or career, but the choosing of exactly where you're going to go. You have to know what your purpose is. I've never been more delighted than when I'm aligned with my purpose.
Yes.
And, when you said for me, it's love, it is absolutely positively love. I love people. I love to pour into people, but the love in and of itself can't be just your purpose. The how it's going to benefit in your life is also a key question to how it's actually going to come out of you. And that's the instance where we have to sit with ourselves and recognize, what our skills and, what our gifts are, what us, what doesn't. And that takes time. I wish I had known, many, many years ago. But then I look back and I see the spiritual stones along the way that all were pointing to the fact that I am going to pour into people. So before making a career decision or even a pathway, I would actually sit myself down and have a conversation with myself. People don't find their purpose. end up being, in a vat of hopelessness
Mhm.
because you don't know why you're here. And absent of that, it's like makes it hard. I believe it goes into depression and aimlessness. If you find your purpose and to find your how, then on the other side of that, I find the joy. And
I
whatever you
love that, Wanda. I love that. I love the concept of sitting with yourself because so often people try to define us based on what they want, based on what they see, based on what they think our capabilities or limitations might be. So you in your, can I say spare time, double time, managed to not only take on all of that you're doing with STEM, with your work, with your um, counseling and help and coaching of people, you've now taken on Liberia. No
yes,
small
that's my
task. That's your heart. So tell us a little bit about that. We don't have a lot more time, but we're going to have a whole nother conversation about all these countries that we consider third world who have needs and resources, but most importantly, they have people who are poised and ready to be the stars. And we just have to give them the runway to do that. Tell us a little bit about your work in Liberia.
I actually end up in Liberia to do leadership development. It's both with a nonprofit and a church that has a nexus with one another. And I went over there thinking that I was going to be able to teach them. And man, was I wrong.
Mm,
I learned more from the 2 weeks that I was in Liberia than any classroom I've ever been in before in my life. Open-heartedness, gratitude
yeah.
is like one of the that just kept resonating within my spirit as far as a truly grateful people. Don't have the resources, as you said, but what they have, they cherish. What you
Mm,
give them, cherish. My friend was actually preaching on one of the Sundays we were there, and we came to the church like 30 minutes beforehand. They were in full worship as we pulled up.
wow.
What about, how we're here on our cushioned benches with the music system, the lighting, the lasers, everything you could actually create an ambiance. Oh, did I mention it wasn't air conditioned? This is an open air church. We have
Okay.
the air conditioned heat or whatever at the right temperature of 71.6 or whatever we do. And you can't get us to raise our hands. You can't get us to have any expression whatsoever. They're in full blown worship 30 minutes before service actually starts.
That's
And I'm
wonderful.
like, can we box this and can I take it home? So where we think that we're actually pouring in, to their country, it's resources. And please, when you actually give to those countries, allow them to make the determination of what to be done with it. They're
Hmm.
the boots on the ground there. Allow them to make the determination of how it's to be utilized. They're there. They know better than we do. But that's what I just met people that were truly loving. Working with the staff as far as the leadership development, the the openness of being able to share their homes. We had an opportunity of eating at different homes. Barely meat. Generally, it was the fish and the greens. We ate really well,
Yeah.
really, really well. But it's a point in my life that I believe that really, really left an indelible mark that won't be easily erased. I have several mentees from Liberia. I stay in contact with them on a weekly basis as far as either to give them different tasks that they have to accomplish. Their one has just graduated undergraduate and is
Wow.
looking to come over here to do his master's. And I had to get used to them calling me mother because I was like,
Yes.
whoa, wait a minute. But yeah, so I mother quite a few over there. But it's been one that's like your heart is actually just going to get wrenched. We had very little as far as air conditioning or running water or internet, really stable internet or whatever. It wasn't lost. It wasn't lost at all because of the gifts that the people just kept giving of themselves.
Well, please count me in for your next visit to Liberia. I want to learn more and experience that and help in any way that I can. But for our listeners or viewers, could you quickly just tell us how we can reach out to you or to the organization to make a gift or to learn more?
Well, the actual name of the organization is CELDI, CELDI, CELDI Liberia, and they have an online where you can actually donate. For myself, if anyone wants to contact me as far as coaching, you can do info at wandawalker.com. Be delighted to actually speak to anyone.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful. So glad we get to talk about these important issues. And I'm going to bring you back to talk about other stuff. So thanks so much, Wanda.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.